Okay, we are in this room, disk analysis and autopsy. Autopsy is a computer program, you see it in here on the desktop, that you can use for disk analysis. So this is one of these TryHackMe challenges to challenge rooms or walkthrough rooms. And if you look in the desktop here, you see a folder case files. And in that folder, you'll find two things. You'll find the actual disk image. See, it's 8 gigabytes file. That's an actual disk of someone that we can investigate with autopsy. And you also find this .aut file that is only 1 kilobyte, but this is like the save file of autopsy. So it will be much easier to open this. It has all the disk analyzed already. With the other one, you have an 8 gigabyte file, and let's say you want to extract all kinds of things. You can imagine that process takes a while. So the AUT is a bit like a save file that will make startup faster or easier. So if we scroll down, you'll see they have a bunch of questions about this disk. And to use it, we'll load autopsy. So we'll take a second to start autopsy. It's quite a heavy program, so you can see this pop-up banner with the doc, and it takes a second or so to start autopsy. And this is a computer program you can use to analyze disk or disk images. And as I said before, in case files, we have two different files. One is an actual disk image that you can load, and the other is the AUT file, which already has been scanned and processed. So it will be easier to open the AUT file, because with the AUT file, you can then directly work with it rather than wait for the scanning to complete. And as you can imagine, with an 8 gigabyte file, that can take quite a long time. So typically, what you would do is click New Case, and it takes a second to load depending on your computer. So once you click New Case, it comes with another screen where you can then select a case name. You click Next, and has to be a unique name, and the base directory. So where do you want to store the files? And it could be, for example, on the desktop. And typically you would do Next, select your case number, click Finish. Then it will start creating the database, and then you click Add Data Source and add your disk. So that's what you would typically do. So we open a new case and then select disk image. And then you would go Next, and then select on your computer the disk image, which could be the one in the case files, right? This large file. But as I said before, it will start scanning, it will ask all kinds of things, and that takes a long time. So what we can do instead for this room specifically is to click Open Case, because someone already loaded this case. We go to Case Files, and you'll see we have this AUT extension, we have this case file. So someone already made the case file for us, and that means that we can skip the entire processing phase. So we click Open, and it will open the case file. Now this will take just a moment. And once this is loaded, we can actually start answering those questions. We'll use this tool to start answering all of these questions. Now, as you can see, this can take a while. This is not the fastest program, let's say, to run on the computer, but you can use this program to analyze your complete disk. Now, you'll say some questions. I'm going to click Yes, click Browse, and then I'll select our hard disk file or disk file of someone's computer. And we click Open and select Image. And you'll see now it loaded the interface. And let's make this full screen instead of having this small window. So here we can see all kinds of things appearing. We see the disk here with the size, the time zone, device ID, and you'll see we have many different options here that you can click through. For example, we can click operating system information, and we see the disk contains Windows NT. We scroll here, we can see some random information. We can see user accounts. We have this tab here in results, extracted content, operating system user accounts, so the users of the system. And in one of the questions, they're going to ask about these users. So you see here, list all the user accounts, and those are simply all of these. And they want them in alphabetical order. So let's sort this by name. So in alphabetical order, so it starts with H4S4N, followed by Yosh WA. You'll see there are some standard Windows users local service, network service. Nobody calls themselves, I am Mr. Network Service. So we're going to skip those and go directly to the usernames. Then we have Keshav, Sun. They're quite difficult names, but if we type in all those names, that should be the answer for this question. If I didn't make any typo, so there we go. That's one of the first questions for this of this room. Now we can find other information in here as well, the computer name and things like that. So let's say we go to operating system. We'll see it's a Windows 10 Home and the owner of the computer. You can see metadata. There is some information. We can find installed programs. So if we go through this list, we can see many different programs. They seem to have a program that does something with a local network, local area network. So we could take a look at that program. If we go to the data source, we can click on the disk and you'll see it has many disks here. But if we click on them, we can actually see what is inside those disks. So for example, let's open this. Then, okay, this is one of the disks. It doesn't have a program file, so this is not the right disk. We go to this one. We'll see we have this program files directory. And here we have that program look at len. So let's take a look at that. And you'll see we have a bunch of files here. Now, if I move myself aside, we can see we have ini files. Ini files are configuration files for programs. So there might be some information in this ini file about the network because the program is called look at len. So if we scroll down in this list, we have what seems to be the name of the computer, the LAN host. So let's say we type in that name. Is it an O or a 0? What's sure there? And let's see if this is an O or a 0. So it seems to be a 0. There we go. That's the computer name that we find in this ini file. We find a network address here. So a network address. A network address is simply the unique network address of your computer. So how other computers see the computer is simply a digit and a series of numbers. Just like your house has an address, computers have an address for the network, for the internet. That's called the IP address. And those are typically 4 different numbers with dots in between. So that's your computer's home address. So if we type in that into the IP address here, then you'll see that is the IP address. They also ask for the MAC address. Now you'll see this len NIC below. All of those values there, those are the MAC address, and the format they want is with dashes in between. So MAC address is simply the address of the device. So different brands, they put these MAC addresses in. They can recognize the type of device, whether it's a network device, a printer, and so on. They have this manufacturing address. So in this case, we type in those numbers and 08, 02, 27, followed by 2C, C4, V9, submit it. There we go. That is the MAC address of the computer. So they say of the computer, but of course this is the MAC address of the most likely network cards, the device address of the cards. So we have the internet address and the device address. You always have them with network cards, no matter which device you have. So if you have a network card, you have an IP address, an internet address, so like a home address for your computer, and the type of address, the MAC address. You can find this in any device that is connected to the network, to the internet. It always has this IP address, which typically is in this format. Now, there are some other questions in here as well. They ask various things. So let's see if we browse around, if we can find some other things in here. So let's say we scroll down, we have these results. Then in the results, we can see various things here. We can look at the EXIF data, and seems to be something in there. Installed programs, and so on. So what they ask here is the MD5 hash of the He01 image. Now we can get that using Autopsy. We can also get it using the command line. But for the sake of this course, let's try to do it with Autopsy, with this tool. So this is the disk image. Then with the disk image, we can click on Summary. It takes a second to load with the summary. Then in here, you'll see we have all kind of tabs in the summary. And one of them, probably was this one if I'm not mistaken, container, we can find the MD5 hash. Now you might wonder, what is an MD5 hash? That is a unique fingerprint. So just like your fingers have fingerprints, files have fingerprints. That's how you can identify these files. And this fingerprint is typically just a list of characters. It's about 10 to 30 characters long. And you see here MD5. So if we look at the container, you'll see here we find the MD5 fingerprint. So that's the unique fingerprint for that file. So how you can recognize this type of file. Every file will have a different unique fingerprint, unless the content of the file is exactly the same. Otherwise, every file has a unique fingerprint. So they ask some other information from you. So they want to know the user bookmarked something on their disk in the Google Maps location, and they want to know the location. Now, with this tool, we are analyzing someone's computer disk. So we took a copy of someone's disk, and now we are investigating it with this Autopsy tool. And this Autopsy has nice features. For example, in results, if you scroll down, you can quickly get all kind of things. For example, the web bookmarks. And as you might imagine, the web bookmarks are actually the back bookmarks of the browser of Google Chrome or Firefox, depending on what you use. I see here all kind of Mozilla, so it seems to be Firefox they're using. And we can look at it. So they say Google Maps location. So most likely the website they have bookmarked is not something with Mozilla. That's something containing Google. Now, if we scroll here to the right, we have a domain. Let's search by domain. And on top, we see google.com. Now we can scroll to the left and we see coordinates here. So that is the coordinates that they are asking for with the Google Maps location. So I can try to copy these coordinates and then paste it in. Now, of course, the coordinate is just the longitude and latitude. We don't need dash in Google Maps. We move that from the answer and click submit. So now we found this location. Now, if you want, you can browse around and see what this user has bookmarked. And we can get all of that because with this Autopsy, we can simply look into someone's disk if we have the disk image. So we can see what is bookmarked, but also other things. For example, they ask about a wallpaper that has someone's name on it. So we might be looking for images here as well. So instead of this results, you see here we have views. And in views, there's file types. Now, if I open that, we can select by MIME type or by extension. Let's click by extension. And then we have images. Now, there's a lot of images here. You see a very long list, really long list. Now, of course, we're not going to look at every image in that list. It would take too much time. So they talk about wallpapers. And one feature of a wallpaper is the size, right? Wallpapers are quite, maybe not the biggest pictures, but they might be bigger than other pictures on the disk. So what we can do is sort the size. As you'll see here, size, they have files of just 400 kilobytes. Let's sort this. And then we go to the ends because that has the largest files. And if we click on it, and then go to the left, you'll see this is one of the images. And you can click on thumbnail. That takes quite forever. Let's go back to this table. And we should be able to see a preview of every image. So we go through these screens. We have annotations, file meta, but no actual preview here. Try to, we can extract them one by one, which is a bit tedious, depending on how many pictures there are, how many large pictures. So let's say we try to extract one of these pictures. Do right click, and I could say view file or right click extract. Let's see, we hit this file here, but let's try to extract this one, extract file, put it on a desktop, and let's take a look at that file. We have this file here. So this image doesn't seem to have anything particular inside of it. Let's delete these two files. Now let's go back to the pictures. So we go into views. So we can close all of this. We go into views, file types, by extension, images. And in here, we can sort by the size of the file. So you see all kind of pictures, but we don't need files. Files of 0 bytes, it's not going to contain anything, right? So let's sort them. And now we have all of these images. Now these images, let's see, so something appeared there, but you should be able to view these images from this menu below here. However, right now it doesn't seem to want to be showing anything. So let's go to the thumbnail screen. And you'll see many images, and this can take quite some time because it's generating all the thumbnails. And let's see, medium thumbnails, but these thumbnails don't seem to contain anything. Those might be those empty files. So we sort them by size, but so what we really want is to extract all of the files, all of the wallpapers. What we could do is simply select all of the images we want. For example, let's say this set. Then we do extract files. We put it in the desktop, a new folder called images. We click save. Then files extracted from the disk. So it could be it's in this first batch of images. Then we could simply go through these images one by one. And you see these are all 0 kilobytes. So these are nonsense images. And if we go back to Autopsy, it might be that we selected it from the wrong batch. See, the size here was quite large, but in practice, once we were looking at it, it got a bit short. Okay, so we have Autopsy started. You'll see they ask a lot of things about things on the disk. File on her desktop, something about on the computer, something again about file names of files. So what we want to do is to actually look at the disk. We create a new case and give some case name. Click next. And we click finish. And then we can load the actual disk. So you'll see this is this option where we can select a data source. It can be disk image or a local disk or something else. We click next. And wherever it has to store them. And actually what it wants here is the disk. So click browse and select the disk. So this is one of the disk images. So that's in desktop case files. And we select that disk. Then we click next. And we have an option of all these things it can extract from the disk. Now that can take a while, so we're just going to skip that. We click next. And now it is adding that data source. Now this can take a while, especially with large disks, with large files. But if we wait, we can actually take a look at the contents on that disk. So just wait for a while and you'll be able to browse the actual disk. Okay, let's take an actual look at the user stuff. So they ask all kind of things about user this, user that, user that. So we go to the folder, users. And in that folder, we can browse the different users and see what they have, for example, on the desktop. Let's see, we go to the desktop folder. See, we have desktop here. So this is just a regular user. You can do that for every user. Go to the desktop and see. They're the same. This one again has 4 things on the desktop. This one has 5 things on the desktop. So they have exploit PS1 on the desktop. So that's not something you would like to see on someone's computer, right? If you find this on the disk, then something's going on. And we can actually look at the file contents. So we can read the contents like this. It's a bit tedious to read it like this. You can also click on text. And then we see the actual script. Now in this script, we see a flag. So that will be probably one of the flags of these questions. So might be the first or the second one that they asked about. Well, let's try to see if that is what they want. There we go. That is one of the flags. Now they mention also something about another file on the desktop. I only see an ini file here. It's not very interesting. Let's take a look to say a user, so not necessarily this try user. Let's take a look at the others. We can go to this desktop, and this one has a folder kill the memory. Also quite strange to find that on someone's disk. And they have kill.py. Seems to be a Python script. C.py, Python computer program or computer script. And this seems to be creating some zip file. And there's a bunch of other stuff in here, but let's go to the next user. Because we are looking for a flag, and it seems to have changed with PowerShell. So let's take a look. Maybe this user, and is again a standard user. And we have this user Suba and standard. So we might have skipped a user. For example, we could take a look at this one and take a look at the desktop, and doesn't seem to be anything in it. Now there's this folder downloads. Here we see Mimikatz. So that's a tool that is often used to dump passwords. It's not something you would like to typically see. We also see some wallpaper here. Let's say we want to look at it. We could right click, extract it, and then put it on the desktop. And then we could see what wallpaper they had, or what is that file. And you'll see this is just some detail file. This is not an actual wallpaper picture. So we click on this one, right click, extract file, desktop, and extract it. Now we can click on it. So this seems to be their wallpaper this user is using. One of these questions, they ask about a full name printed on the desktop wallpaper. No, this image, it doesn't have any wallpaper on it. It's just a regular image, right? So we could browse through this, through the different users, see if they downloaded some other wallpaper file. So let's say we go to this user, to the downloads, and there's another image here. Let's download this image, right click, extract file. We put it on the desktop, save. And we say it already exists. I don't care, overwrite. And we have this image of that user. Now they mention why a user has his full name printed on the desktop wallpaper. So the username might be this one. So we type that in and click submit. And there we go. We found the name that is stored in the wallpaper. Now this autopsy is not going to search inside images, right? If we search for name, or if we would know part of the name, it's not going to search inside the actual data of the image. We have to extract it and then look at it ourselves. Autopsy at this point doesn't have those kind of AI features that it looks inside the images itself. Okay, so there's more stuff on the computer. They mention a Jara file. Now, the Jara file you can find inside a zip file. So when we go to this user, we can go to his downloads, and you'll see we have this Mimikatz that's used to dump passwords. If you click on this Mimikatz, you'll see here the file name kiwi_passwords.jar. We can extract this file. So we right click and we click extract file, put it on the desktop, save, and file extracted. Then if you see that file here, Mimikatz, it's a computer program that is used to dump passwords. So if you find this on your disk, it's a big red flag. So if we click on this, you have this .jar file, this Jara file. Jara can be used to detect malware. You can find a course about that in my YouTube channel. If you take a look at the videos. One of these courses is about Java. So quite strange that it's inside this Mimikatz, but okay, let's take a look at this .jar file. And typically this Java works by detecting rules, detecting patterns inside files. So you see it says it cannot open. We're just gonna open it with Notepad. If you have something better, then open it with that. And in here, you see we have an author name. So they ask about what is the name of the author. So it's Benjamin, whatever his name. So see if it accepts that name. And there we go. That is the name of this author of this Java file. So this file was hidden inside that zip file. So bunch of questions left, but we're making a lot of progress. So they ask some more questions about things on the system. What we can do is take a look at the drive. We can go to the disk and let's take a look at this users folder. And every user has their own files. As you can see, we can open it here and click Documents, Downloads. And this first user, this H4S4N, he has 2 files with Mimikatz. On his disk, we can try to extract it. Let's try to extract these. And see what they're about. Also, we have Python in scripting language. We have some other file here. Let's see what that's about. Extract it, downloads. And the other seems to be just images and then text file. It's a regular text file. So let's take a look at these files that we extracted. We have this Mimikatz that we saw before and LAL setup. Let's see what that actually installs. So this is the look at LAN program that we saw before, where we extracted the network address and the MAC address. So that is this LAL setup. We have the Mimikatz. If we open it, we see this jar file that we had before. So it seems to be just a jar file. Now, if we could scroll down in this file and see what patterns they are looking for. So it seems the LSA dump program and something about PowerShell. And let's say we close this. See if we go into these folders, we have the Mimikatz program and also Mimikatz. So we don't have yet the second name of the program, but we can try to find out where it is. Now we can also take a look at the Windows folder. And if we go to this, if we close this users folder, then we go to Windows. And if we open it, there's a folder called prefetch. If we scroll down here to prefetch, we can find all kind of programs in here that have been executed. And you see quite a large list. And not everything is going to be exe files. You see different files, BF and different stuff. So you see here OneDrive and many different files. And one of these files that we find here is called Lasagna. So Lasagna is another tool that is a hacking tool for password stuff. So the first one we already knew, it was Mimikatz, and then we have Lasagna. And there we go. Take a second or so to load if I spell correctly. And they want it in alphabetical order. So it's Lasagna first, and then Mimikatz. And there we go. Now we have the hacking tool, the two hacking tools found on this disk. And then we have some questions left. So they also ask about the network card on the computer. So that is not the network card of this computer, but of course the one that has this and that we have the disk copy from. So to find that, we go to the results, extracted content, Then we go to operating system information, and you'll see we have system and software. So what we'll do is we'll double click on software. Then in the software, we'll click on Microsoft, and we scroll down to Windows NT. Very long list. Windows NT, current version. And then if we scroll down further, we have one that is called network. So network cards. If we open that, you'll see we have a service name and a description. If we click on description, we can find the name of the network card here. So it's quite hidden away, but you can find the name of the network card. So that's Intel. And it will take a second or so, but that's where you can find it. So we find it in extracted data, and then going deep into the tree structure, and we can then find the name of the network device or the network card. Now, one of the questions they ask is, who was the last user to log into the computer? That question is actually much more simple than you might imagine. If you go to this results section, you'll see we have this list of operating system user accounts. Now, because we use this split screen, we don't really see the full thing here. So we go to the, we scroll to the right, we have some options like date created, date accessed, and some others. Now, of course, the one we're interested in here for this question is when it was last accessed. So we sort by date accessed, and then you'll see we sorted by it, and we find the user that has last logged in on top. So that is Siva Priya. And if I click submit, you'll see that that is the last user that is logged in. So sometimes with the information, you can simply browse through it, and it can help to view the virtual machine in full screen, because it might be the information is there, but it's just outside of your computer screen. And of course, scrolling and so helps, but it's easier to see it in full screen. So, of course, it'll take a bit, and then we almost have all of the questions complete for this room. So one of the question is, what is the name of the network monitoring tool? If you go to installed programs, you can see all of the software that was installed. You might remember from before, there is one of these tools called Look at LAN that we found this information in. So that's the tool they want here. So type Look at LAN, and then that question is answered. And so, yeah, that is the program that they used here. So in the installed programs, you can find it, but we also found it before in the users downloads folder, where we found this configuration of the IP address and the MAC address. Okay, so if we go to Autopsy, and let's make this full screen, we can find here recent documents. And in these recent documents, we can find all kinds of things. And what we hope to find is the file name of the archive. So here they ask us, what is the file name of the archive? And this is something about an exploit and so on. So here we could take a look at the recent files. And you'll see there's quite a lot of files. And let's see, we scroll, we can see, we can sort by date accessed. We can see if there's anything in here that seems to be suspicious or seems to be an archive. So we could simply go down this list and see if we find anything. So you can see here we found Mimicards, but that's not what we're looking for. And we have some file name here, 0 logon encrypted. So that might be the file name that they want. You see here it has some dots in front and dots here. We could try that, fit it in. And they ask for archive. That's why we see this .zip here. Let's see if that works. And there we go. We selected the we found the file of the exploit, the 0 logon. And also we need to find one file on the desktop. We need to find which file the user had on their desktop. And then in there, they do something with PowerShell. And what was the first flag? So let's take a look at the data source. We open it. And let's take a look. We have the users folder. And in here we have all the users. Now, one of them is going to have the information that we need. And this here, it had on the desktop. So if we take a look at one of those files, they use had, so it's not anymore on the desktop. So we could take a look at app data, roaming, Microsoft, and then see if they have something with Windows. And then there's PowerShell in there. And then we have this history. In this case, this user only has ls in their PowerShell history. So let's go to the next user. Now we could go to this user. And then we do the same thing. We go to app data, roaming, Microsoft, Windows, and PowerShell. So this one doesn't seem to have any PowerShell in there. So we can go user by user. So take this one, app data, roaming, Microsoft, Windows, and also this one doesn't have it. So let's try the next ones. So we do the same thing, roaming, Microsoft, Windows, and this one has some PowerShell thing in there. You see 3, but there doesn't seem to be any data. So let's go to the next one. We do the same thing, app data, roaming, Microsoft, Windows, PowerShell. And then let's see, this one has something in the console. If we scroll down, you see here they do something with lala.txt, but not any flag. So let's scroll down and we find some flags here. So the first flag, it seems to be this one. And if we paste it in, we copy this and paste it. There we go. We completed the room on disk analysis using Autopsy.